Woo, woo, woo. Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome back. You are listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox. Before we get started today, a little trip down memory lane, a little nostalgia for Friday the 13th. Woo, the last Friday the 13th in 2020 was March the 13th. That was a fucked up day. It was my last day hosting the show out of the studio. For those of you who have not been following along, since the beginning of the show, we used to broadcast live. I guess used to be in person, sitting across the table from me in Midtown New York, right in Hell's Kitchen, just off of Madison Square Garden. It was a great spot, super fun, a great thing to do every week. And then Friday, March 13th, was the last in studio show for me, and the world came to a halt at that point. And we've since done this whole thing from Zoom. Often I'm sitting in my restaurant, Della, where I'm at today, and it's been great because it allowed me to bring on people from all over. So far, it's been North America. I've had people reach out from other parts of the world, and that hasn't quite happened yet, but definitely people from Canada and people from California, and it's really been a wild experience. But it just in preparation for today, I was like, man, I hope things don't get crazy. Interestingly enough, there's a new set here in New York City or in New York State of restrictions that go into effect today. Namely, restaurants and bars have to be closed by 10 p.m. No more people. Cut off. You got to go. Gyms have to close. Gatherings of people were limited once again. Seems small in comparison to what happened last Friday the 13th, but grateful for health and for a lot of the experiences I got along the way. It's not been an easy trip, but looking in hindsight, it was what, 8 months ago? This is a crazy 8 months. So I just wanted to share that. I'm going to bring on my guest now. He is the owner and founder of Motivity Video, which is a video production company mainly focusing on marketing videos out of Boston, New York. And the message this week, it's a question that maybe my guest and I will get to answer over the course of this show. And it is, if a picture is worth 1,000 words, what's a video worth? With that, I would like to bring on my guest, Andrew Penziner. Andrew, welcome.
Hey there, glad to be here.
Thank you, thank you. So Andrew and I met recently. We're both doing a mastermind, a business mastermind with the amazing Lance Knob, who was also a guest on the show back in May or June. A really fascinating individual. And so Andrew and I we've done a number of Zoom calls already. And the first time you spoke on the mastermind, I was just like, nice, I like this guy. He'd be great on the show. And the more you spoke, the more that affirmed that. So really, really glad to have you here. Why don't you give everybody a little background on you, how you got into video production, what that process has been like, and then starting your own production company at a certain point.
Sure. But I think I have to say, I think what made you like me is my voiceover voice. I think you said you liked my voice and what I was saying. I think that's really it.
That's a video tactic I'm unfamiliar with.
Oh, no. Well, I do that on the side.
Right?
You've heard me on JetBlue, maybe. Anyway.
So it's just like totally subconscious where I was like, I know this.
Yes, lure him in.
Yeah.
No, I'm one of those, I went to school for video. I didn't really know what I was getting into, but, when they first put a camera in my hand and, I was up in Lake Champlain at SUNY Plattsburgh, where I minored in freezing cold. And I went
to University of Buffalo. I sympathize with that. I major in music, minor in snow. Yeah.
But, we had to go out and do something on Lake Champlain, and it was beautiful. And, we took a car on the ice and, and a camera. And I'm like, wait, I can get paid for doing something like this.
It's fascinating. I said the same, kind of feeling about music, but it turns out you can't get paid doing. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Well,
I made some.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah. And video is hard too, right? Because back then, we were looked at rising up through the business. It was when they use that language like, oh, you guys are a dime a dozen. I can pay you anything I want. Like,
right.
And you have to work your way up. And it was, sometimes really, really hard. But, I kind of always, I was always in the visual space. I had drawn, I thought about going to school for architecture, for graphic design. In one way, I think of myself sort of as like a video architect, because I just like to touch all things visual and spatial. And actually that's why music works, and
Yeah.
I love cooking, but I like presentation points too. So
are you always thinking about like how it would look in a picture when you're putting a plate together?
Oh yeah. So yeah, I can't help not, but, so, got my first producer credit way back, making cable ads. But what was beautiful about that, aside from the pain of it, was you had no money. So you had to come up with good ideas. So that's where I learned about the strength of a good idea, and so that led me into broadcast promotion, on-air promotion and branding for like TV and cable, Fox Sports and all that stuff, where you get to be really creative, but you also have to be strategic from a marketing sense. So it wasn't just making pretty things. And, just long story short, I ended up at WBZ TV in creative services as a senior writer producer in Boston. And, we're doing great stuff, $1,000 budgets to $250,000 budgets, flying 2 helicopters at once and cranes. And, it was fun. And film 35. And, but, I kind of wanted to, I always knew I'm a lifelong learner. I wanted to do other things. And it was actually when I trained to get myself out the door, I trained as a voiceover artist, because way back in college, I was too afraid to go on radio like we now.
You got a great face for radio. You do.
And I was chicken. And but I always loved microphones and talking into a microphone and that whole craft. And that actually, I decided to leave, and that got out. The plan was, I really didn't have a strong plan. The plan was, I knew that would bring in a certain amount of money, get me started, and then I would freelance and then figure it out. I just felt the urge. I had to move on. I had to try. So that's the short of it. And I think I can link now pretty quickly, which is in on-air promotion and branding. I'd always made commercials in 30s and 60s. And so I'm wired to think that way. And when I left, videos were 5 and 10 minutes long. People are like, oh, you don't have much experience to make a industrial video, and and here we are today, as things have evolved, 30 and 60
in TikTok
and everything.
land, right? It's like everything is
rules,
15
right?
seconds. Yeah.
It rules. Wait, you want me to think in 15 segments? I can think in 5.
Seriously, it's no joke. It's no joke. What's your
strategic?
What's your opinion on TikTok?
I mean, I love it. Honestly, I haven't had enough time to engage in it on my own. I mean, I know you have kids and you have businesses and, and everything. And, we're in hybrid learning right now. So, with a 9-year-old at home, I would love to jump on TikTok, but free time is something that I'm just not finding.
I always make time for TikTok every day. I post,
it rocks.
I post a TiK.Tok every day. It's funny. I got started on it probably like in October, and I had to get my kids to help me at first. I was just like, what's the deal here? What do you do? But they showed me a couple things, and then I just blew past them. And it really came down to the pandemic and TikTok really, sorry, I'm receiving my seafood real quick.
Oh, that's awesome.
There you go, man. Thank you. It came down to TikTok aging up finally and getting out of the like I was just using it at first. I was just fascinated with the idea. Coming from a music background, I knew you couldn't just in a social media post or especially a paid run use some very popular music without potentially getting blocked or hit with some kind of BMI, ASCAP fee, royalty fee, something like that. But if you did it through TikTok and their little emblem was floating around, you could do whatever you wanted. So I was doing these especially for Instagram. It is just for Instagram stories, and I could rip whatever music I wanted and put it to like us setting cocktails on fire and everything. And it was like, well, this is the aesthetic I've always wanted. Now I can do it basically for free. I just have to do the work. And that did okay. And I would put up a little thing here or there, just goofy or hop on a trend, but nothing really happened. But as soon as pandemic hit, all of a sudden it was like grown men doing workout videos. I took off with 15-second jiu-jitsu instructionals. just showing like a technique with a little text or
Yeah.
something, a little context. And all of a sudden, boom, I'm getting like 20,000 views per video. And I was just like, oh, hi, what's happening? And like sponsorship offers. And I was like,
Yeah.
amazing. It's really wild.
It's so focused. It lets you do exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
You know, it's so clear. It's so obvious.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. I mean, and it's also like my introduction into video. I'm really into video and video production. My buddy, he's also a close friend. He used to work for me. He basically did the same thing. He was working for some larger companies and broke off maybe like 2 years ago and started freelancing. He felt like he had enough clients, but he was working like 1 or 2 days a week for me just to supplement. And at a certain point, he was like, I got enough work. I don't need to work for you anymore. And I was like, fantastic. But then he and I started doing stuff together. I showed interest in it. And we've done a few things. We've just put some short things together. But TikTok is really my bag. It's like so sad to say. It's like a 44-year-old man. I'm like, TikTok is my
not at all. So I'm curious, how much time a day or a week do you spend on it? Like
on TikTok, it depends. Because I'm very limited with time too. I mean, I'm running 3 businesses. I'm trying to keep a 4th thing kind of. Well, I've got like, as we talked about in the mastermind, I've actually got like 3 or 4 things on the back burner plus 3 kids. So I'm just working, but I would say I spend easily an hour a day working on video. Whether it's it's a combination of like in the morning I work out every morning and I try to record something every day. And then I'm constantly doing stuff with the show. I actually have I hired somebody that helps me cut up little snippets for social media for the show. But I do all the YouTube stuff. I piece all that together. I do probably 1 Instagram live a week too with somebody else. I definitely do one with my brother every week, and then I try to fold another one in, another live broadcast. So I'm constantly pulling these little pieces. So I'd say easily an hour a day, just working with video and video related things, and hopping on TikTok for consumption, because I always want to see like where things are going. I've been monitoring, for like the last 8 months, last 10 months. And just seeing like what's happening now, where's the next little like nook and cranny to elbow into, because there's a lot out there. I mean, it's increasing, it's ramping up big time, and now there's a lot more adults on there, and there's some really impressive people on there. I'm not quite that impressive. So it's like, where's your little niche? I mean, you probably would agree, like in video marketing and storytelling, you have to have a little angle, at least. You have to make some kind of noise somehow.
I'm always, you said niche. I've always been about the idea of narrow casting.
Yeah.
Just find the fish that you want.
Yeah. And that was my approach to music, but I just had like, I don't know, I feel like I had too many values wrapped up into it, or too much philosophy for me to allow it to make me money. So I was like, that'll be a side thing. And like food and beverage, I didn't have all that baggage tied up into it. And so that became like the bread and butter. But now I'm circling back. It's funny, like I studied art music, and I was putting out like free jazz albums and prog metal and stuff like that. And now all I want to do is make 15-second hip hop beats for TikTok.
Hey, they're awesome.
It's like jujitsu took over this side of my brain and TikTok took over this side of my brain. And I'm trying to fuse the two. That's so... All right, awesome. We're going to take a break, and I'm going to wrestle with that. I'm kidding. We are going to take a break, but I feel very good about what I'm doing these days. So hang tight, everybody. We'll be back in a few. We'll catch up with more of what Andrew's got going on. Welcome back, everybody. If you're just tuning in, this is the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox. Today, we are zooming to Boston, Massachusetts to talk to Andrew Penziner. He is the founder and owner of Motivity Video Production, which focuses and emphasizes short form video for marketing purposes. Is that correct? Did I encapsulate it all the right way, Andrew?
Yeah, yes, but the short form thing is interesting, right? So a lot of short form, but really do all kinds, because I think I'll just say, different lengths of video, different parts of the funnel, different goals, Right.
Mm-hmm. What's like the standard long these days?
Oh God, honestly, I don't know if there is a standard long, honestly, but
or the average.
It's really common. I mean, 1 to 2 minute videos for a marketing or brand video or product video are really common.
That's like a year, right? Like a 2 minute video. It's like, oh, we've been here so long.
Yeah, I know I'm cramping. Yeah, it is.
Wow. Yeah, it's funny because I think of everything in terms of like, I use like IGTV as kind of like the transition. Like if it can play without them clicking, then you're short form. If they have to click, you're long form. Is that kind of accurate?
Yeah, I think so. And it also depends on just how and where you're using it.
Yes.
I mean, right? I just did a video for a company who has this communication solution. They're a startup, some Mass General doctors and some researchers, and they have this product that can break the pager problem in hospitals, like unify all communication, bring the pager into it so doctors don't have to carry pagers, tablets, smartphones, all this stuff.
Right.
And, they were doing something on Start Engine, so like crowdfunding, but a little bit more, I think, business focused, right? And so, it was a 2-minute video there that made perfect sense for that, place. Yeah. So right video, right length, right time,
Yeah, exactly. And I think of it in terms of this different social media platforms, and they all kind of have like different limitations. So it's like Instagram has like that. It's not a cutoff, but after over 60 seconds, we're transitioning. You're kind of moving away, which could be good or bad. TikTok, the 60-second max. Most are 15. I have seen lately with TikTok like the recommended music and also the viral. If you click on music and you go to more, it'll show you like what's trending now, what are like the most viral, and most of them now it seems like are over 15 seconds. Where like 3 months ago they were almost all like I'd speed up my video, like in Premiere Rush, I'd like increase the speed so that I could get it within 15 seconds because I just couldn't find anything more than that. And now it seems like it's flipped. So it may be going more towards 30 seconds, but and then Twitter is what, 2 minutes and 20 seconds is like your max there.
Yeah.
And then Facebook, you could post a super, super long video.
But I got to tell you, is like, someone who makes video and video marketing, if I'm looking at Instagram, I can't tolerate more than 15 to 30 as a consumer,
right. Yeah.
I'm out. The only thing I will watch that's longer is like a soccer team's highlights, condensed highlights. If there's an 8-minute reel of the highlights of a match in the Premier League or in Serie A, that I will watch, nothing else.
Yeah. Right. I got you. Yeah. So when did you branch off on your own and get away? Did I see you worked for Viacom as well? That was in the little snippet you sent me.
Yeah. So CBS, WBZ in Boston, CBS is they're an O&O, owned and operated by Viacom.
Yeah.
So that was my last full-time job in 2006.
That's so really interesting. My last day job was also 2006 to 2007 working for Viacom here in New York City. I worked for, no way. So, it gets better. I worked for BET.
Really?
It was
That's
really
awesome.
interesting. Yeah. I was in their ad sales division for like exactly 12 months. I started as a temp, just went through a temp agency, and they sent me in on Halloween of all days. That was my first day of starting. I came in on Halloween. They just needed help. In this one particular, admin position for the executive vice president. So we were on like the 46th floor of the Viacom building in Times Square. And I was like, I would never, I never wanted a cubicle job, but damn, this is like, if I just like lifted my head over the wall of my cubicle, I was looking at the top of the Chrysler building. I was like, I can do this. So I hung out for a year. And ended up, again, I was an assistant to Ray Goldborn, the EVP, right outside of his office. Lou's car was there all the time, and whole cast of like stars, in the black entertainment industry. And but I was constantly like a sales rep would come to me and be like, I need you to watch this 12-minute clip and tell me how many 30-second spots of this commercial comes up and make sure we didn't miss anything. It's just, I was in the media.
Right.
So I got to.
You don't want to do any make goods.
What's that? Yeah,
Because you're
exactly.
looking make goods. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was in the media quad, so I was constantly, dealing with video and photography, and
Yeah.
just like sometimes editing some things, and sometimes just checking for things. And then the rest
Sure.
of the time, I got to do whatever I wanted. So like I would work on my own music. I had some MIDI stuff in there. I was just always playing around, and it was a fun time. But they offered me a full-time position, and I just kind of laughed at the money. And I just come off the road. I was on the, I was freelance musician for like 10 years prior to that.
Uh-huh.
And I was finally just like, I'm not going to do that anymore. And I worked at a restaurant. I was a sous chef for this like killer guy, Gramercy Tavern chef, here in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
But it was just like grueling work, man, like 60, 70 hours a week. We had just gotten married, and my wife was like, I never see you. She was a teacher. She worked days, I worked nights. So I was just like, I got to get out of this. And so I took this job. But a year in, when they offered me like the long-term package, I was just like, dude, I can make that in 3 nights at a bar. We had our first kid, so that's what I did. Went back to food and beverage, worked 3 nights a week in a bar, kept touring. But it was a very invaluable experience. I mean, I learned so much about media. I learned a lot about, I learned a lot more about production and editing, but like just media in general and what purpose it serves. I was like, whoa, very eye-opening, interesting time.
Yeah.
And that was right before that was right before social hit hard. And I appreciate
Facebook. Yeah.
It just started. So I set my Facebook account on that computer, like sitting up there. I was like resisting. And people kept saying to promote your shows, because I was still playing a lot then. They were like, to promote your shows, man, it's a great tool. And I was like, okay. And I finally did it, but I did it on that computer. And like back then you had to like submit a copy of your ID and like all this weird stuff to get on Facebook. I was like, well, wow. But I'm really glad I had that experience prior to social really taking over, because I have the context for like the old world back in the day, Well,
some of the things still apply in terms of, basic marketing principles and stuff like that.
Right.
But then a lot of those don't apply.
Right. Like back then, I mean, they were doing 30-minute videos and,
oh my God,
long ads. And a friend of mine that lives really close to me now, he comes in the restaurant a lot. He was working for, I think it was Sci-Fi, and he'd been there a long time. He's a few years older than me, and he's been there quite a while. And his dad was also in marketing prior. His dad was like in radio. And he said, there came a point where Sci-Fi kind of fractured its 2 approaches to meet with social and to meet with YouTube. And when they first started, he branched off with the YouTube faction, and they were cutting 30-minute videos for YouTube. And he said the analytics that they were getting from YouTube were so finite that they realized everybody was dropping off after 15 minutes. So instead of wasting all their money on one 30-minute, they same amount of money, just a little bit more creative, and they were getting 2 episodes out, and they could really hone in on the information that was coming back. And he said, his dad used to always say, from radio, we know 50% of marketing works, we just don't know which 50.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beautiful thing about now. That's what I love. I mean, I'm a creative at heart, but I also appreciate business, and that you've got to drive business goals. That was a nice thing about being at Fox Sports. I was on air promotion manager, and so I had to make image and tuning campaigns, right? Mm-hmm. But home team's Fox attitude, you got to be out there, so you got to be really creative, but you had to have a strategy for putting everything to work, right? But what was always hard, so TV metrics are one thing, but marketing video, until recently, it's really hard to have any data and say, this is how it works. And now it's really exciting. Like, I'm a big fan of platforms like Wistia, or Vidyard, which plug into your website or elsewhere and help you get really deep analytics. And you can see what people rewatch, what they skip, what their engagement rates, their play rate. If you do an email campaign, you can have their email address. Jeremiah, I sent this video out yesterday, and he watched this video 3 times. He is so interested in this. I'm giving him a sales call,
Right, exactly. Time to make an offer.
It's awesome. I love that.
I do too. And I had meetings, this is going back to like starting in November, working with like some young digital marketers, because it's definitely like an area I don't know about. I'm definitely coming from the creative side, but to also appreciate the business aspect and the
Yeah.
goal. And once you own your own business, then you're like, oh, we have to do this now. This is no longer like lip service. Like this is survival. And when I learned about like pixel management, you know, where they're like, they send an ad, whether it's video or whatever, through social media, and then they can, like, especially digitally, they can trace whether you like follow through, like if you click, but then if you also ended up on the website, if you made a purchase. But the guy was telling me, he was like, it's a little different for your restaurant, but he was saying essentially if they have their cell phone on them, I can tell you if a person that clicked your ad on social set foot in your restaurant after the fact. And I was like, at first I was like, that's so creepy. And then I was like, that's kind of awesome though. I was like,
it is. Exactly. Hello there.
So yeah, hi. So this date and time, you check no. But just to, I mean, it is like, I'm always trying to get super intimate with customers. I think that's like really the bread and butter, no matter how you do it, whether you're doing it in person or digitally or on the phone, whatever. But just like, if you have their attention, like just make the connection. I wouldn't be so creepy as to be like, I know you clicked my ad, but I would definitely, knowing that information, I would definitely put like an ounce of extra effort into conversation with that person and just, you know, make it real. Make it real. All right, we're going to take another break. We're going to pick back up when we get back. Everybody, hang tight. We'll be back in just a few. Okay, everybody. Hope you're having a great Friday. Again, you're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox. Today, we are speaking with Andrew Penziner from Boston, Massachusetts. He is the founder and owner of Motivity Video, which is predominantly a marketing video production company. And he got started. Did you start right after your stint with Viacom in 2006? And then did you break off on your own?
So actually, it was a little bit more like 7. I was a bit of a freelancer for a year, freelance producing, until I realized there's like hundreds of producers in Boston, you know, and it's hard, you know, and so actually the Museum of Science in Boston, you know, great institution, got my name and number, and they're like, we have a huge project, you know, that we need someone to take on, and do proposal, whatever. They love my proposal, and they said, okay, we want to give you this, but you have to be a company tomorrow. So like, okay, no
LLC, baby.
Yeah, like, so, you know, took the T to the State House, walked down the hall, got ignored for 2 hours by someone who was 10 feet away from me and had no one else at the counter, you know, paid $520, and I was a company, you know, and
you probably couldn't Google how to start an LLC back then, could you?
No. And so, you know, I'm like, what am I going to call it? Andrew Penziner Productions, LLC. Because I can't mess that up.
Right.
And then, you know, but that was instructive in that, you know, it told me, I think it was the right thing that, you know, I had to be a business, and I had to take on, you know, whole projects. But, you know, one of those who fell into it without a business plan, you know.
Same.
Exactly. And then, you know, I did really well for a long time because I had a really good network, and people were feeding me work. And, you know, this is also before 2009 in the recession. And so, you know, Staples would call me up for, you know, something totally not strategic, but like a B-roll package so they can send out footage to TV stations across the country, whatever. And, you know, it could be $13,000 to $15,000. Now that's like $4,000, you know, it's, you know, and so
did
the network.
Did that switch happen during the recession, or did it still kind of keep?
Well, it went a little bit like 2012, things rode a little bit longer, but 9 set the tone. And, you know, budgets were definitely bigger, and you know, it was easier to structure videos and programs and packages and things like that in a way that made a lot of sense. And also you could put all of the project management and the creativity, you know, the client service and everything into the buckets and have the budget for it, you know, so that was a big shift. I think I, you know, lost like, I don't know, $50,000 of work on January 1st, you know, or, you know, when it just poof went away. And
wait, in 2009?
Yeah. That January, like that many people in like a week said, oh yeah, we're putting on the brakes.
We're
done. And so budgets, you know, I think that really changed budgets going forward for a lot of people, a lot of industries.
Yeah, I mean, the same definitely happened in food and beverage, especially service. Like retail went up big time. My business partners had just opened the wine store that we still have at the end of 2007. And 2008, it was like good. We experienced some growth. And 2009 hit. It was like boom. And I was running a restaurant in the city in 2008, and that was going the opposite direction. So like retail went up, service went down, and that dip stayed for a little while. But then it bounced back hard. And I'd say like 2012 to 2015 was just like this huge ramp up. Like it is essentially I think like a mini bubble, you know. And then everything changed November of 2016. And it kind of hasn't gone back since, especially here in New York. I mean, it may be regional, but there's a little rally this week, though.
we could do our own Pod Save America another day. But I probably shouldn't mention that. So another podcast.
But how can you compare that to what happened this year? Because that's what really like inspired me to have you on, was what you were talking about. You know, what essentially was going through your mind towards the end of last year and the beginning of this year. You were thinking of you know, setting things down, laying your hands down, and just going back to working for a company. What was? Can you compare or contrast the two kind of what's the word?
Catastrophes.
Yeah.
You know, I think it was kind of easy in a way. I mean, in 2009, you could still have a shoot after that, right?
Yeah.
So you could still have a shoot
legally.
Legally. And, you know, and the other thing was I was doing voiceover work. So I do that on the side. And, you know, I might be in your kids' Lexia learning program and some other things, you know, but actually I definitely am. but you could go into a booth, you know, you can go into a studio, you could keep it going, and it was still a recession that people knew and understood. Recessions work the way recessions work. And, you know, I think everyone, you know, people hope for 2 years, but, you know, most people are really thinking this is like a 5 to 10 year dig out, you know. I think if you're being realistic, right, it was deep.
Yeah.
And it was dramatic. I think now the big thing is, you know, on, you know, March 12th, you know, at least up here, you know, everything shut down. And the idea of a video shoot was inconceivable, you know, and for months it was that way. You know, I think up until August, I had 4 video shoots, with just 4, you know, in-person video shoots. I had done other things, you know, some clients who started doing, you know, content semi-regularly. We were using StreamYard, you know, and some other platforms because we were looking for solutions where you could record higher end, you know, video. So multi-stream like we're doing right now, but also have a product that you can turn into something else. So the real big thing, restaurants, you know, is that we couldn't go into places and spaces. And, you know, I do shoot, you know, a lot of the productions we do. So, you know, I would do, the business would do, you know, honestly, sometimes I have these video marketing, these blog packages where it would just be me, you know, quarterly blog packages, you know, strategic, you know, tied to goals, whatever, you know, we make, you know, several 30 to 60 second video blogs per quarter and roll them out over time. And I did that as one-man band, you know, because I also have a filming, you know, I know how to film and light and edit, you know, really well. But then, you know, sometimes I'd have 10 people on a shoot or more, you know, and the average being like 3 to 4, but still no one was willing to do that. You know, I knew camera people, 6-figure camera people, like high 6-figure camera people who hadn't had 4 shoots by the end of August, you know? And so that was the really hard thing about it. Live and remote was the only way to do it until, you know, regulations, until Massachusetts, like New York, started making really great progress. And so we were able to go back out, I got I did some COVID compliance officer training, which is a new job in film and video, so if I'm not hired to be that person, I could be the person who thinks about all of the things to make it safe. Mm-hmm. But right now, there are, like you alluded to, a lot of interesting opportunities. I never really thought that I'd regularly be directing shoots in other states from where I'm sitting right now. Mm. I can't mention the brand, but 2 weeks ago directed one shoot one day in Indiana, the next day Tennessee, and there was a small crew there, green screen, but this was going into a really good high-end animated virtual production for a big virtual conference for this company. And that was great and interesting, and then I directed a few other shoots for them where I was on site, and, there were client and directing teams in cities across the country. We had about 10 people on, and we had the whole thing configured so everyone could work like they were in a room. And, it didn't feel that much different.
That's amazing.
And that's kind of great. It's an opportunity. It's instructive. And I think it's kind of, it's great. It's tactical kind of work. It's freelance day player kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm not afraid to say, that when March 12th hit, kind of like 2009, a lot went away. So these new opportunities, though, are sort of, as we're talking in the mastermind, getting me thinking and saying, okay, understood, got it. How am I going to turn this into something more sustainable? In addition to, how am I going to translate some of those other products and offerings, the services, the strategic video marketing packages that were typically done in person, to an online, remote, probably more remote than not, mm-hmm. model.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's great to hear that, because the real game of survival since March has been adaptability, mm-hmm. And not, I mean, you have to have your eye on the prize still, but mm-hmm. being able to get, I feel like the old pinball machines, I feel like the ball that's just getting, and you go up and around, and then you think, oh, you're going to shoot, and it shoots you back in, and you're
yeah.
But if you're a little tough, it's not so bad.
Well, I will say there are a lot of lessons that I've learned being independent for so long, but
right.
One of them is, it's a life lesson, and it's comfort with not knowing and uncertainty. To sit in that hot seat labeled uncertainty, to just sit there and just be like, okay, I'm a little stressed, but I'm cool.
Something told me you were going to use the word comfort or uncomfortable in that, but when you went to say it, I was like, I know what's coming. That's amazing, because it's been a constant recurring theme on the show, and for me personally too. Like in jiu-jitsu, it's talked about constantly. The saying is, get comfortable being uncomfortable, and that's 2020 in a nutshell, right? If you weren't thinking that way before, it's time.
I mean, there's a part of me that's, I think stressed more than, I care to be, right?
Right.
And,
sure.
I have this old creative director when I was at, when it was, do you remember Sports Channel way back?
Yeah, of course.
So Sports Channel New York, Sports Channel New England, we were all part of the same network before we became Fox Sports. Mm-hmm. And the creative director there said, he's like, I'd be up against the executives at the network and, fighting the good fight for this idea that I believe in. They knocked me down. I'd hang tough. And he's like, then I'd go in the other room, and that's where I'd cry, and
I cry after every show. No, so, I'm kidding. Yeah.
But you have to know, you learn to know that you're going to make it work. Even if, I mean, sometimes there's a knock that people can't get up from, but you have to know that you're going to figure out a way.
Yeah. Agreed. Cool. We're going to take one more quick break. We'll come back in just a few, and I want to talk about the future of Motivity and video production. All right, everybody, hang tight. We'll be right back. Okay, everybody, welcome back. Again, it's the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm Jeremiah Fox here talking with Andrew Penziner, owner and founder of Motivity Video out of Boston, Massachusetts. He was just talking about kind of the similarities and the differences between what happened in 2009 with the recession and what happened here in 2020 at the beginning of the year with the pandemic, and kind of what some of the creative ways the film industry and he personally have adapted to continue going on, and this reoccurring theme throughout life that we all should really adopt, but comes up often in the show, is the idea of getting comfortable under pressure, not thinking like, oh, the prospects are just grand and we're going to sail off into the sunset. It's a grind. It's a constant grind. I'm curious to get your feedback. I try to ask this of everybody from all the different industries I have on the show, like what now is kind of like the prognosis for the future? Like, I don't even know. People ask me all the time, like, what's going to happen with the restaurant industry and dining rooms? And I'm like, enjoy it now. Cause like, I don't know, they might disappear. It might just all be like, the places where you hit the QR code and someone hands you a bag and you take off, and you just don't do this anymore. It's kind of freaky, but at the same time, I'm completely hopeful that like intimate little places like mine will always be around. People will always want to come together in some way. What do you think is going to happen with the video industry? I ask music guys this all the time. Like, are you ever gonna play in like a packed stadium again? Are you ever gonna go in like a big shoot with like tons of people? Or do you think it's always kind of going to be limited with some virtual component? Maybe not even from a health concern. Now they just realize that this is cheaper. We can get, you said, in the last segment, it kind of worked like perfectly, and it was probably a lot cheaper.
People have been looking for video to be cheaper forever. For
sure.
And it's like every knock, every recession, everything is like an angle to open the door a little bit more. And it's unbelievable.
Well,
but, I think...
I was going to say, it also has to do with people's expectations, because the same with the restaurant industry, it was a super low margin. And so we're always looking for a way to make it, like, I can't raise my prices much, the people have expectations for that. But what we learned from March on is like, there were a lot of things that we did just because they were industry standard and people kind of expected it from both sides that you don't really need. And immediately people are like, no, I don't care about that. People are like, I don't care about linens. And I'm like, great. Like, I won't have linens anymore. Like, that shit was expensive, Have you found that things like that to be true?
Yeah. And you actually hit on something that I've been working on and thinking about since probably about 2014, 15, but didn't start putting some of that into play until 16. So one, I think just at a high level, I do think we are shooting again, but we're not, and some people are shooting a lot and some people are shooting a little, I think on average for everyone to be filming a lot, and I say filming, there's your animated explainer and you can, make that anywhere, right? An animated video, right?
Right.
But most videos have some live action component, or a lot of them, right? So we're going to get back to shooting, but I do think that a good degree of remote and live stream is going to stay. I think one, it's easier for some people. I think the barrier to entry is easier. I think, like you said, some people love the cost of not having a crew there, and equipment that costs money, and all of that stuff that makes videos look great. But I'll link this, bring this all together. I've always been one of those who says, or who believes in, again, I said it in the beginning, right video at the right time. So I love user generated content. I love, stuff made by companies in their offices, and I love the other videos that we make that go, that sit on top or next to and work with those. I think you need all of the above. I think we're probably a year or two out before, maybe 2 years out before we're close to shooting regularly like we used to, because also a lot of my clients' budgets have been decimated, so that's the other thing, that people who feed us, But going back to what I was working on in 14 and 16 really quickly is that I was looking for ways, kind of like you were, to break the mold with video. One, I believe in video marketing, and I believe that there's a need for more and more content. But the current cost structure, bringing a crew in, having editors edit things, voiceover, music, writing, all of those pieces, really add up, understandably. So I was looking for ways to break the mold. And I came up with these things called video generators. They're on my website, and they're, products that let you do 3, 4, or 5 videos per month in a repeatable way, where you optimize them as time goes on and you put a little bit more time up front, right? And they're lower cost and I'm not meaning to do a commercial, but this is my thinking about going forward, is that I think we're going to be I certainly want to be doing more of that kind of stuff, whether we're in person or remote, generating content in a strategic and efficient way that helps people, especially now, stay in touch of their customers and the people who, come through their door, whether it's literally a door or, their SaaS platform, and I think that's the way. And so I'm working on that, going forward.
That's really fascinating. I like that idea, and the scalability of that I would be one of your customers, like that appeals to me in a major way. What was I going to say? Yeah. We've got just a couple more minutes. I wanted you to, that's like really awesome from the video production angle, but you personally as an entrepreneur and somebody who is considering, like you were talking about, at a certain point you had that itch and you were like, all right, I got to scratch this. Like in 2006, I got to see what's out there. And then that's kind of been renewed for you right now under pressure and under just like life circumstances. Do you have like just a quick one-liner? I mean, you said something already about, comfort level, but just something else for the kids, for the up and comers who are just like super pumped, and like just the one thing you would say to them or that you repeat to yourself that just like helps you kind of, I always like to leave on a high note and just.
Yeah. I mean, it's, si se puede, yes, we can, it's like, it's like, it's believe in yourself and, and believe that you're going to figure it out. Keep your head down. I mean, that's the nose to the grindstone, but eyes open for opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Where can people find out about you? We didn't discuss like the website or anything. Where can people like get in touch with you or like learn more about your company?
Sure. Motivityvideo.com, Motivity. I know that's fast. Video.com, at Motivity Video, Twitter, LinkedIn, Andrew Penziner, all of those ways, as you can tell, I like to talk. I get paid to do voiceover work. So a conversation. Yeah. Bring it on.
Yeah, no, fantastic work today too. I knew that like right away. I was like, oh, this guy, he'll be good. I didn't know you did voiceovers. That's even more impressive. But yeah, really fantastic.
That just means I won't shut up. So
it's okay. I have the same problem. I mean, Sam's telling me right now, get off the air, dude. Shut up. There's another show. I can do this. When I first started and I saw like Joe Rogan episodes that were like 3 hours, like how do they do that? I did my first show, an hour went by like that. I was like, oh, that's how. Yeah. It's natural. It's DNA.
It goes fast.
It does. Well, thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it. All of you listening, I hope you got something from this and you have a really great weekend. Andrew, I'll see you on Tuesday morning for the next mastermind. The rest of you, I'll see you next Friday. Everybody have a great weekend. Peace out.